Hello. Hi. I don't have any audio.
But why this matters to you beyond that. And then we're just gonna talk about the next steps, what the process is for.
Hold on a quick second, Matt. Is the audio working now?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Technical difficulties, my boss, you know?
They don't pay me to run the projector.
That's true. That is true. Okay, so talking about your neighborhood, there's 344 homes in the landscape maintenance district, and it entails this whole area you see on the right there, that map. It's essentially the first phase of development for the entire Del Prado Ponderosa area. And so it's the entire western portion along the Arroyo. And it was established, the landscape maintenance district, in 1984 by the developer. Back in the day, landscape maintenance districts were a very, very popular way to find ways to sustainably maintain areas. It's kind of before HOAs became really popular. So that was the tool that the developer used, and so we are kind of like HOA to a certain extent, except the city is the property manager of the common area instead of property manager. This is a single purpose district, and all the money you pay is dedicated to a Ponderosa del Prado landscape maintenance district fund that could only be used on improvements within this district. So there's no funds that you pay that go anywhere else in the city. Your district is pretty simple. It really covers landscaping and irrigation. And it also covers the access to the trails on both sides of your neighborhood. When the development went in, the Centennial Trail or the Royal Villa Laguna Trail or whatever trail name you want to call it, that was a really key part of the development because it is a regional trail that connects you to a lot of different areas around here. And it was a big focus when they put this development together. I'm going to go through a few slides just to show you some pictures of what your landscape maintenance district looks like. There's really kind of two main areas that are covered in the landscape maintenance district. There's the area along the trail, which we have a lot of issues with. You know, we had a fire on the southern part. I don't know if other people are familiar with this fire, but some kids had built a tree house, and I don't know if they are the ones that burned things down, but that is where the fire happened. So we had a fire, we got some issues. We got a lot of landscape in there, a lot of trees, over 100 trees. And we also have the area along Paseo Santa Cruz that goes north of Del Prado, the common area along the street front. Like I said, it really covers irrigation and landscaping. The irrigation has been turned off for every portion of the development or the landscape maintenance district, except for along Paseo Santa Cruz. That irrigation system is still up and running, and the other ones had so many leaks, we had to shut them down, which has led to a lot of dead plants, and we don't have the money to replace those dead plants. Part of your development is, it's not a lot, but part of the development plan approval is the gates that lead to the Centennial Trail. So that's part of just the gates and the fence right there are part of the landscape maintenance district, not like the kiosk and the trash can and some of these other things, but the gate is the responsibility of the landscape district. Yeah, so just kind of, I went over this already, but why are we here today? Back in 1984, the developer had a roughly $60 assessment fee that you paid. That was the first assessment. We have it on record back, I think in 1988 was the first one I could find where you paid about $61. Over time, what happened is the assessment went up and down a little bit, but in 1996, Proposition 218, the Right to Vote on Taxes Act passed, and since then, we have not been able to raise any rates. And in fact, in 2000, we lowered rates to about $16. So last year, we talked and with an attorney that specializes in the maintenance district, and they said, okay, you could restore the $16 or $60, $61. So we've done that, but it's not enough. It's not gonna get us to a sustainable solution to maintain the trees, the irrigation and the landscape. What we do right now is just reactive. We don't do any proactive pruning. Things are kind of a mess. We really want to address some of the safety concerns that are associated with that. And we want to get rid of a lot of the debris that could lead to another fire if kids are playing back there. So what we're really looking forward to is riding the ship and kind of taking this deferred maintenance we've been doing and starting to tackle it. So that should say what has changed from 1984, but the dollar in 1984 is worth 28 cents today, so $61 back then, you know, roughly $230, $240 now. Wildfires have risen. We've got a ton of trees that we haven't taken care of that we do need to maintain. The cost of labor and materials has gone up, and so we just basically have a funding shortfall to the point where we can't even do basic maintenance. So right now, really, the maintenance is just focused on that section of Paseo Santa Cruz and then removing dead things, if that. So now our consultant's going to come up and talk about the process a little bit.
I am so glad to be everyone here. So basically, I just want to take a step back. As Matt mentioned, this landscape maintenance district is actually formed pursuant to what we call the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972. So it was a very popular way for these districts to be able to, and these developments to be able to be self-funded. And so what it allows is for the maintenance and operations of, it covers anything from parks, streets, it covers street lights, and it's very popular all through and down, up and down the state. So what happened was with the Landscape and Lighting Act, that was fine. But then eventually Proposition 13 passed. And so I think all of you know what Proposition 13 is here. Basically, what it did was it limited the amount of property taxes that people were paying on property taxes. So that limited the amount of money that public agencies were receiving. So one way that they were able to look at supplementing their incomes or their revenues was by forming assessment districts and other revenue measures. And one way that it kind of got a little bit out of hand, so Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association decided to jump in and said, hey, we want to be able to allow the public agencies to get additional revenue, but we also want to put some guidelines. So what they did was they put a Proposition 218 on the ballot in 1996. It was approved by voters and it became effective in January 1st of 1997. So what it did was it created some steps and some guidelines that I mentioned for us to follow, public agencies to follow, to be able to get these assessment districts and other type of revenue measures passed. And one thing that it looked at is the annual budget. So it says, okay, we understand that you need money, but we want you to be able to say what is above and beyond what the public is currently getting. So what that means is that the agency has to put together a budget. We look at the budget, we look at the amount of properties that are within that assessment district, and there has to be a boundary that's formed to be able to identify what properties are in it. And then we can come up with a rate. That's kind of the first step. Then another part of it is this key component called the general versus special benefit. And what it means is that the additional revenue that is being recovered has to be a special benefit to the properties that are within that assessment district. And the reason that we have John here, who's a licensed civil engineer, he writes the engineer's report. It must be completed by a licensed civil engineer, is because they also come up with the calculations for general benefit. So if everyone is coming by or who lives outside the district and they're enjoying the property, the benefits of what the assessment district is providing, then there's a component to that the public agency must use funds that are not generated from the special, from this district. Which means that you as property owners are not allowed to pay for that general benefit. It has to come from additional source and additional revenues. There's also the idea of proportionality. Right now, everyone in the landscape maintenance district pays the same rate. So it looked at different factors that are going to take place with how close are you to the services that are being offered? And other factors. It also looks at what type of property that you have. If you're a single family home, will you pay the same rate that a commercial property has to pay, or open space, or a vacant parcel? So it gave us some guidelines. In addition to that, there's specific balloting requirements that we have to follow. And it also allows for a 45-day notice. So for an assessment district, it is very different from an election. Where an election, you show up at the polls or you mail in your ballot, it's one vote per registered voter. But with an assessment district, it is only property owners who vote. So if you live anywhere else in the country, in the world, what we receive from the county assessor's office, we will send you a ballot to that address. So everyone who's a property owner will get to vote. And one more thing. Right. So the main thing about the assessment district is how it's calculated, or how, so once we send out the ballots, everyone will get a ballot with how much money they will be required to pay for that year. When you send the ballot back, we calculate that amount. So if all the ballots that are returned, which is very important that you return your ballots, because it's not based on the total amount of the assessment. It's based on the total amount of ballots that are received. We do the calculation. If there's 50% in support, weighted, then it passed. What does weighted mean? So if you're a single family home, and let's say it's $100 per year, but you're also, someone else has a commercial property, and their ballot is for $200. They would get 200 votes, you would get 100 votes. Which one? John, do you have anything you want to add?
That's perfect, and that's a great description.
Okay, so applying Proposition 218 to Pleasanton. So one of the things that we look at is, I say we, as in John, this special benefit factor. And so, one factor that we look at is the creation of parcels. We are not starting this landscape maintenance district from scratch, so we don't have to go out and figure what parcels are going to be in. Because the development was built based, your development was created based on this condition, we are using all the parcels that are currently within that assessment district boundary. And then there's the access to and the proximity to the maintenance and this of the maintenance and other services, and then improved use and improved landscaping. The other thing that you'll notice that is very different is the zones of benefit. So what we're going to look at, and you see this very colorful map here, as I mentioned right now, everyone in the assessment district will pay the same rate. But here we have specific zones based on those special benefit factors, and so everyone will be kind of tiered, with the majority of parcels being in that basic level. And that's what covers the rates by zone. At this point, I will say we do not have, the engineer's report is not being drafted. You'll hear later in the presentation that there's 3 resolutions that have to be approved. The first one will be, City Council has to direct the preparation of the engineer's report, and that will happen on March 17th. So nothing officially happens until that date starts. Once we get that direction, that's when we will start creating the engineer's report, so we won't have any specific information for you now. The district will, the city will hold another meeting later. This meeting is, like, it was presented earlier. It's a listening tour. We had the meeting in February. They were able to get feedback. We're here to provide information on the Proposition 218 part. And if you have any questions about the Proposition 218 part or the engineer's report, when it becomes available, we will be here to answer those questions.
Okay, you have done a lot of listening so far, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of break. I'm gonna talk a little bit more because I think this slide is very important, and probably people like numbers, and so I'll give people a chance to talk about these numbers if you have any questions. But then we'll push on and get through the rest of the presentation here. So when we came to you back in November, what we heard is, hey, you know, what you're proposing, which is this orange, this is what we propose in the first meeting, is it's a lot of money, and we're concerned about it. And what are the other options? So what we did is we said, you know what, we're gonna look at other options. We're gonna say, hey, when this development was approved and all the landscaping that got installed during the development approval, if we had actually maintained that this whole time to a high level as it was when it was installed, this is the type of cost we are talking about for the year, $113,000. There's a breakdown of all the different costs and what we'd spend the money on here, and I could talk more about this, but we could come back to it too. Now, realizing where the landscape, what the landscape condition is right now, we said, you know what, let's just try and kind of maintain what we have and make it look good, make it safe, make it so it's there's not a liability associated with potential fires, and just have it look nice, but not put a ton of money into it, not put a ton of money into fixing the broken irrigation system, just repairing what we could and making things work. And that's where that's the $84,000 that you see. And that's what the city is recommending, given the current situation. Now, like I said, last November, we did hear from you about concerns about like, hey, this is a lot of money. And so we said, hey, what is kind of the bare bones solution that we could do to have a good sustainable solution for the future? And we said that's about $52,000 a year. Now, right now, even with the $60 payment that you make annually, we collect $21,000 for that. If you just amortize the amount you paid in 1984, it'd be about $65,000 today. So just to kind of put it in perspective, what we're like asking about tonight is, hey, is there something that people feel that we're missing, or that are people leaning more towards like, hey, we want our neighborhood to look really good and put the money in, or do you not want to spend a lot of money, or do you kind of think, hey, let's try and find a middle ground? So that's something what we're looking at today. Now, I could keep on going if nobody has any questions at this time. We're gonna have more time for questions, but I want to open it up real quick in case everybody's good. Okay.
When you say 84,000 compared to 52,000 per household, what would that mean?
Okay. Oh, good, I should have just got that. Oh my God.
You're paid for the leading.
I'm gonna answer that question. You had another question.
Because I saw a lot of numbers from with the whole.
Yeah.
Are you guys actually compare different wonders, maybe some of the cheaper across the field?
Sorry, say that again?
Like, you have a lot of number, like full number, put some of 1,000,
Yeah.
5,000, but like, I know it's estimated, but like, have you guys actually compare different, number who can offer cheaper to do this?
Yeah, so we put these as whole numbers because it's an estimate, and we don't want people to think that we know down to the exact dollar and cents, because we don't. Everything that we're putting on here is, I've worked here at the city for over a decade. I manage 5 landscape maintenance districts. I help design and manage a lot of the city's landscapes. So we have a lot of cost comparison data that we use. And so what we did was, we actually put together an estimate and looked at things at different levels of maintenance based off of our historical landscape maintenance contractor costs. And that's how we came up with the numbers, but then we kind of rounded them. So that's why you're gonna see these numbers. None of this is finalized until we actually go to the city council with the engineer's report on the exact number. But we will dial in on everything after we have these discussions. Okay. All of you go first.
Mine is just it is maybe a simple
Okay.
question, but I'm wondering how that 21,000 got so low. Like when they first put this in place, was there no incremental increases each year?
Oh, well, man, you're good. You're a good audience member. Yeah, so that is the problem. Like, if we had an inflation factor, so that what you paid back then stay consistent with what the dollar was actually worth, I wouldn't be here talking to you. Your landscape maintenance district would be great. The water would be working. Everything would be really good, like it is with 2 of the other districts. That's not the case. So I'm glad you pointed this out, because everything that we're proposing, I just want to make it clear, we don't want to be back here in front of you, asking you to go through a Prop 218 process again and voting yes or no, because it's not cheap to do. So everything we're proposing would have an inflation factor built in, and we'd have a cap on that inflation. So like, let's say we had a crazy year economically and we had 5% inflation, we would cap it at 3% as we're proposing now, but that is something that we can talk about.
So there was no inflation originally when they put this together,
Correct.
0. They expected it to cost the same the whole time through it.
Yeah, 40, I mean.
Who were
40
these people?
40 years ago. Yeah, it was a mistake. I mean, clearly, it was a mistake and, now we're trying to right it, so. It'll be good.
Based
Hold on,
on.
we have, I had a picture.
These are more general questions and feel free to table any of them, but.
And just, if I could just say, I'm pretty close to this, the finish of this presentation. So I'm probably more asking for questions on this particular
Okay,
slide.
I'm going to the end.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a question about this slide or could your question
Well, I
wait?
had a question about what you just said,
Okay,
which was, you're gonna increase this every year, which in turn would mean we're giving up our 218 rates?
no, so, Proposition 218 is based off what is approved, right? So you can have, when you go to vote. And you vote on, let's say, a cost increase or paying the same cost or whatever cost that we put on the ballot. We will include an inflation factor based off of the CPI, the Consumer Product Index, which is the Bureau of Labor and Statistics.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like, it's a nationally provided number specifically for the Bay Area, so that the dollar is basically staying with what it's worth for construction and landscape and all throughout the years. But we would cap it, so you'd still have your Prop 218 rights. There would only be a change based off of the 2% of inflation for that year or whatever the inflation is. Yeah. Okay. One more.
Gates, whose responsibility is it to monitor zone 7 and the contractors they have utilized, because they're the ones that do the damage to the gates?
Yeah, so, it is our responsibility to monitor our contractors, our landscape maintenance contractors. This is a shared property, the property that the landscape improvements are on, it's a zone 7 property. And the developer and zone 7, the city came to agreement to provide this benefit, to the residents of the neighborhood so that they could use the trail and have a nice landscape area. So it is zone 7 property and zone 7 could do kind of whatever they want. But if zone 7 damaged something, we would talk to them and maybe, try and work with them. But if our contractor damaged it, I say, contract, you better put that fence back together. Okay, I'm gonna move on. So anyways, I'm gonna talk a little bit about this. Because this is essentially what we're here to talk about tonight, that one of the main things is, as I talked about, the proposed rate. Which would be about $27 to $32 a month for all the properties, depending on where you lived, what zone you were in. The lower end base $27 a month, higher end $32 a month. That is very good care. That's proactive. We're gonna get into the landscape maintenance district immediately. We're gonna start pruning trees. We're gonna fix the irrigation system. We're gonna get everything squared away, and we're gonna be very proactive with what we're doing. And we're gonna focus on the health of the planet and making your neighborhood look really nice, which means it's a nice place for you and your family to be, and hopefully it means your home prices are gonna go up. Now, the other option, the middle ground, is the city recommended option. It's a little bit, it's lower. It's $20 to $23 a month, depending on where you live. $242 to $282, depending on the zone per year. We're also gonna, with this option, we're gonna get in and we're gonna do things pretty quickly, but we're gonna phase the improvements over time. And it's not gonna be to the same level after everything's said and done. It's gonna look nice. It's gonna focus on the trees and keeping everything healthy, fixing some of the irrigation so we could do some of the restoration planting. But we wouldn't come back in and do a lot of planting. We just kind of, when there's a big hole, we try and put something that looks nice. That's really low maintenance. The reduced maintenance option is the bare bone minimum that we think we could do to have a sustainable solution. It also means that maybe we're gonna have to come back for a Prop 218 vote if there's a significant cost coming up in the future that we're not foreseeing right now, but that's $13 to $15 a month. And that doesn't give you everything that we want. It doesn't give us the reserves to take care of, let's say a big storm comes, knocks out a bunch of trees, we wouldn't have a reserve to pay for that and we'd have to figure out a way to deal with it. If there's long-term improvements, the irrigation system, we're not really gonna touch much of the irrigation system with this option. But we will address basically safety and reliability type issues with that reduced maintenance option.
Could you explain that footnote on
Yeah.
Slashing.
Yeah, so, your development, like a ton of, developments in Pleasanton as previous to now, and actually still now, is a planned unit development. It's called a PUD. So the PUDs, they were very popular in Pleasanton because we could say to the developer, hey, developer, you know what? You're developing this, you're gonna build this park, right? That's why you got Del Prado Park, because that's what we made them do. So there's special conditions we could put on a PUD. But if we do the low maintenance option, we're gonna have to actually go back to the city council and have a reduced level of maintenance that gets approved for the PUD. Because part of the PUD has a standard of care that's associated with it for the landscape. And we're not really meeting that standard of care now, but we're not so bad that we would have to go back to city council. But with the reduced maintenance option, we would have to get that lower standard of care approved by the city council.
In more simple words, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, it sounds to me like the city is gonna reduce their investment in our neighborhood if we make that choice.
We won't reduce our investment. We just legally, what we have to do is change the documents that spell out what the city has to do. So we wouldn't have the money to maintain the district to the standard of care that was approved back then. And because we're voting on this, we actually just would need to make that legitimate. To say, you know what, the residents, they don't want this standard of care or this middle ground, they want down here. And so we need to record it, and so it says forevermore, yes, we're kind of not doing much to this area. It doesn't mean like the city is not putting as much money in the Del Prado Park or fixing streetlights or, you know, resurfacing the roads or anything like that. It just means that we're not putting, we don't have the assessment money to put into the assessment district. That's a lot of words, I did not say.
It sounds like they're
I did not
reducing
say-
their investment in our neighborhood.
Let me explain a little bit more on it. So we call it conditions of approval. So when the developer came in and we negotiated, the city and the developer negotiated a deal and set a standard for which this neighborhood should look. And so that was a negotiation, and said, hey, I want these benefits for the community as part of this development. So it could have been in exchange for fees. It's a negotiation. And these are documented through these conditions of approvals and the PUD. And so what's happened is they said, okay, we want you to have these general benefits and these specific improvements in this area. We want you to have nice center median aisles. We want this nice centennial park and a linear park as part of your development. As a condition of that development, you're going to take care of that and be financially responsible for that. And the developer agreed to that because they know that he's going to sell it to you. It's in your statements when you bought your house, that big thick stack. There's a statement in there that says you agree to that. And so it is a legal requirement. So when there is a vote of the people to change that, we have to go back to the city council who approved that agreement and agreed to that standard levels and saying, hey, the public says we don't longer want it to be at this standard. We want a change of this standard. It's important to do because the city, I know it's confusing a little bit because the city's maintaining this landscaping maintenance district, but our code enforcement officer could come in and fine the district for not meeting the standard of care that was for that development. So let's say your neighbors start complaining about how this district looks, right? Comes into the city, talks to our code enforcement, says, hey, this area is looking really, really shabby, right? He goes in, looks at the formation documents and looks at the PUD and says, oh yeah, this is supposed to be taken care of, looking perfect, right? Our own city could fine the district, and then that's a cost to the district. Making this change to the PUD changes that, and it's in the council is the one that has the authority to approve that change because they approved the original agreement. And so what we're saying is if you come back as the community members here, say, we want a lower standard, we have to go and make that change. So if one of your neighbors says, I don't like the way that you guys are maintaining this area that you're legally responsible to maintain, you can say, well, we changed that standard. And then it reduces your risk or your liability against someone trying to fine you all for taking care of this area. Does that make a little more sense?
It's growing.
Okay.
Now, basically, the PUD has created these maintenance areas. The condition of approval requires a long-term maintenance plan, so if things do look shabby, like Adam was saying, there's a way for the city to come and say, hey, HOA, you really need to get on your stuff and maintain this, because, I mean, I think Pleasanton looks beautiful. I live here, I moved here because I think it's such an amazing community. And I think a lot of it is because of the care people put into it, and we wanna continue to give that care here, but if residents in your community don't, then we need to make sure that legally is. So our code enforcement officer isn't coming to me and be like, violation, Matt. So, you had a question.
Yes, because right now you say you are doing the bare minimum for $20,000.
I'm saying we're doing below the bare minimum. Like our irrigation system doesn't work it. But yeah, sorry, go.
Okay, so I was just saying, it sounds like you are saying the bare minimum is done for $20,000 and you propose the bare minimum for $52,000.
Yeah, what I'm saying,
It sounds like double for doing the same.
yeah, what I'm saying right now is that the 21,000 doesn't get close to meeting the requirements of the district to maintain the property. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying right now, we really need to right the ship. The 52,000 is that next step up to, so things are safe. So I'm pruning trees. If there's, I'm taking care of potential concerns. If there's a tree that starts to split or something and I don't have money to remove it and it cracks and it falls on a car that's driving on Paseo Santa Cruz, that opens not just the city up to liability, but it opens the entire assessment district up to liability.
Does it include also the maintenance of the cement wall?
No, so all, those are each homeowner's responsibility. Yeah, so the district doesn't pay for the maintenance of the masonry. Okay. Now, this is it, and I'm gonna go
This is
forward.
super quick.
Okay,
So just imagine like nobody votes at all. Like
Yeah.
what's the default? Is the third one the default or is the 21
there's
grand the
the,
default?
today, so we haven't specified what's gonna be on the ballot. When
Oh.
we go to the ballot, we are only gonna have one option, and it's gonna be a yes or no on option. So today is
Gotcha.
like the most
Thank you.
critical meeting, because we're gonna come out of here, we're gonna say, this is what we heard, and then we're gonna present that to the city council. There's gonna be other opportunities for you to provide input, city council meeting, another meeting in early April. But what we decide, the last time for us to kind of figure everything out is about mid-April. And on May 5th, the city council is gonna approve everything, and then that's like when everything's moving forward and we don't have any opportunities to change things. Okay, so I'm getting pretty close now. I wanted to put, I'm the landscape architect, I'm the graphic guy, I wanted to put into what I've been trying to tell in words into pictures for everybody. And I like flowers, right? Because I'm not like that, but the beautiful flower here, this is the formation standard. It's really great, everything's good, it's gonna look good for a long time. I put up a picture of a part of the maintenance district because in the maintenance district, we actually do have areas that look really good, and then we have areas that look really poor. So I'm kind of showing you what the standard of care that's gonna look like in your maintenance district across the board. So this is what the city recommends. It's pretty good, but it's not ideal. This one here, this is, like I said, we're really just focusing on safety and really the trees and everything, and it's looking pretty poorly. And existing is not sustainable, it's dead. That's like, we can't continue on with that. So that's my visual aid right there. Last time we met in November, we heard a lot from people about concerns of what is the city actually spending the money on. So we put together a 10-year history of the money we've taken in. and the money that we've invested into the district. So the 10-year revenue is $173,000. What we've actually spent is $213,000. And you can see we're about $40,000 shy, and the city has invested that money. So the city has actually supplemented. So this kind of gets back to your question. The $21,000 is not enough. The city has supplemented the district. The majority of our money, 44%, is spent on the landscape maintenance of the areas, irrigation and planting. Not irrigation so much anymore because we turned off the irrigation system about 4 or 5 years ago. Next in cost is actually this process that we're going through right now. It's not a cheap process. It's about $36,000. This is why we definitely only want to do this once. We don't want to have you paying for it because this is a process required by the state, and you, as the people that pay the assessment, actually are responsible for paying for the ballot measure. So it is very important that we come to a consensus, and whatever that consensus is, as long as it's a yes on something, I think we'll be okay, and we won't probably have to come back again. But we definitely won't if we go with kind of the city standard or the formation standard. Then after that, we pay a lot of money on water, and then it's really divided up against small things. The administration fees are for the time that the city spends, the time the county spends, and then some consultant fees for writing the engineer's reports.
Question on that. If you had been collecting the $61 a year for the last 10 years, wouldn't that 173 be more like?
Yes. We've done way better, way better.
20,000?
Yeah, so for 25 years now, we have been talking about $16 instead of 61. So if that wasn't the case, like if back in 2000, we did make that change, like I said, we wouldn't be here talking today, probably. Maybe you'd be in pretty good shape. We'd still need to make a change, but you would probably be the top 2 problematic landscape maintenance districts.
And then the Prop 218 expense wouldn't be there, so that number would actually be 180,000, so it'd be
Yes,
80,000 to the good over those 10 years, if we had been collecting that $60 a year instead of
That's right.
60.
yeah, that's right. Okay.
I think a point is we've had to stay balanced as best as we can, and we've been, every year we reduce the efforts to your district to try to stay as balanced as we possibly can. And so that's why you've seen less maintenance of the areas and a decline of the plants, decline of the maintenance, because we've had to scale those services to the district. And it's getting to the point now, and why we're having to go through this expensive process. It's now starting to get to a point where it could be fined or a health hazard or safety hazard that goes there, because we're not pruning the trees, we're not getting all the dead out, we're not getting the underbrush taken care of, which is building fire danger in the area. We're getting to a point where we can no longer defer the maintenance any further. And that is why we're initiated this process. We're already negative in it and upside down. And so, yes, if we did the 60, things would look a lot better because we would have invested that money into the maintenance of that area, and it would have looked better. There would have been a lot more plants alive in this area. So it directly relates to how much we collect is how much we spend. And, we can guess what the forefathers was is at the time they did the reduction was there wasn't as much of a need for that work because they got caught back up maybe. And that's why they did the reduction. I can't speak why they didn't eventually go back up as the maintenance was needed. But it wasn't until we had to get some specialists in the room for us to be able to make that adjustment last year. And it took a specialist lawyer to help us go through this, as well with SCI, who does this all the way through, for us to at least make the first correction. But even with that analysis, we don't think it's sustainable. And the problem is we have 10+ years of backlog that's been building up, and that dries up some of this cost that's with it. But the money can't go anywhere else, really. And so even in some of our other landscape maintenance districts, we try to keep a small reserve to address emergencies. You get bad winters, bad storms, windstorms, trees come down, and you need to have sufficient funds to address those. Because we don't want to have to trigger the Prop 218 process. That's the downside. Prop 218 is designed to protect you so that we just can't raise rates to do whatever we want in that area. But on the other hand, it is a state process. It's very complex and very expensive to initiate and go through. It's a special balloting process for that.
Thank you, Adam. Those were really good points. And what happens when you get a landscape architect and an engineer in the room is you have to do a lot of those things. So I'm almost done talking. We're gonna get through this. Why your vote matters, really, I've already gone over this, but I'll just kind of emphasize it. A yes vote means that everything for the future is gonna be taken care of. You're gonna have a sustainable landscape solution. You're gonna see an increase in what that area looks like, a decrease in safety concerns. We're gonna replace the plants. We're gonna improve the gates and the trail access. And we're gonna have the dedicated capital reserves that Adam talked about in case there are emergencies. We're gonna be proactive. No vote. And this applies to all the solutions, more so for the formation standard versus the reduced maintenance standard. But a no vote means even more reduction in services. We don't fix the irrigation system at all. Visible deterioration continues. We keep on deferring stuff. Bad, basically. It also means at some point in time, things are gonna get even worse to a point where we're gonna have to pay for another Prop 218 vote. And when you saw that the Prop 218 vote is, whatever it was, 17% of 10 years worth of like funds, we don't wanna do that again.
I have a question on this slide. Twice now you've listed no emergency repair fund under the no's category for the, but you've never put it in the yes, like we will get that.
So that's what this is.
Okay.
And it's just a different language that we use. Maybe we should have put it in more simple terms, but the dedicated capital reserves, that's what it is as the engineering division, that's what we think of as the emergency.
At any
reserves.
level, we're going to get that.
Yes.
The
More so in some levels, obviously,
Right.
like we'll be able to deal with small emergencies, maybe with the reduced maintenance. But let's say a big problem happens, there's no way we're gonna be able to deal with it, and we will do that for the Prop 218 process.
the probability, right, as the further you go to the left, the more that we collect now, the risk of having to ever go through this process greatly reduces. So if we just do the incremental deferred maintenance, that increases the probability of us having to do this process sooner. The part of trying to put a CPI index is to ensure that this never has to be done again in the future. Every year we do an engineer's report. Every year we document the level of services that and how we plan on spending that money. Every year you have an opportunity to discuss with your board, which is the city council, the level of services and levels of effort. As a community, you can speak to your council and say, I would like a reduction because I don't want to pay that type of fee. And so that there is that process. That's why there's a full process every year. When we start that process and say, hey, we're going to start the engineer's report, that is a public meeting that allows you to provide comment and feedback and input. So this isn't something that's just set in stone where you have no abilities to check in or make adjustments that go with it. You can see how well we've been doing every year and how we spend your money and how we plan to spend your money. And as you as a community don't agree or say, hey, you know what, this is getting too much, there is the ability for you to communicate that and reduce that. Now, reducing the level isn't a Prop 218. Prop 218 is when you want to increase. So it can go backwards and not be expensive to go backwards. Okay, so that's the important thing is if we have for some reason are over collecting funds and we got the rainy day funds and everything is tuned up and is looking great, it will take time. How quickly we could potentially get there really depends on how much we collect. But if it's like, you know what, Matt, boy, you made this look so good, it's better than everywhere else, and maybe that's too high level of care. Can we reduce that back and reduce the cost that we can do that? That doesn't require an expensive Prop 218 vote. That's a conversation with the community and your landscaping, the person managing it, which would be Matt. And so there's always that opportunity to scale back. What we want to set you guys up for is to never have to go through the Prop 218 process in the future because it costs so much compared to what we collect, particularly for your district. And so, 10 years and it's still 14% of the total money that we've collected. That's a significant cost. We really don't want to have to do this. And even if you all came in and said today, we agree to raise that rate, we can't. This is a state requirement. So even if everyone emailed us today and said, please raise us our rates right now, we still have to go through this process for it. Unfortunately, that is just a legal process that we have to go through.
What is like no,
What does no mean?
what is the consequence of no agreement?
No,
People vote no.
yeah,
Are you gonna pull the 21K out of the
No.
area and just write us up?
so a no vote means that everything stays the same as it is right now, and I can't change anything, and we just spent $36,000 on trying to right the ship. And we're just gonna continue to see a decline in everything, and then at some point, probably in the near term future, we're gonna have to come back to the voters again and try and figure out a way to get them to say yes. So it's definitely in the city's best interest to try and find a solution that people could get on board with, right? Like, I didn't sign up to be a landscape architect to be a property manager, I would have gone a different route, but there is the option, like, we were talking to another district, and like I said, HOA took over that district. Unfortunately, there's no HOA for your neighborhood, so that's not a very feasible option, but if that's something people are interested in,
Yeah.
that is something that could be explored. It's just very difficult and also costly.
Most people here don't like it.
Yeah, and I bought a house in Pleasanton and I said, where is there not a HOA? That was like a big selection criteria for me. So. Okay, so we're almost at the end here. Why this matters to you? It creates a visually appealing place. Your property values are gonna go up. You're gonna have really great access to a trail. You look at your neighborhood and walking on that trail and then going up one neighborhood to the, like, Val Vista. I mean, the difference in walking on the trail is substantial. You're gonna have it's gonna be a better place for your family. That's pretty much it. Everything's gonna look better and it's gonna be like all peaches and cream. Like we said, Adam talked about this. We definitely want to get feedback from people. How many people actually got an email from me about tonight? Oh, that's not very many. Okay, how many people only received notification in mail? Most of the people. Okay, so as a city, we have a lot of people's contact information because of the utility bills they pay, and that's the only way I have of contacting people. And so that's the area I've been putting my efforts into, is sending out emails, and it was partially successful, but thank goodness this is a mail type of crowd instead of the email crowd, because people came for mail. So thank you everybody that came. We are going to be sending the survey out via email though. So there are some flyers in the back that have a little QR code to the survey. The survey is going to have these options, the 4 options we talked about, kind of the high level, the moderate, and the reduced, and then the current. And we're going to be moving forward based off of the feedback I received from you tonight, or we received from you tonight, and the results we get on that survey. I mean, if you think about this in the big picture, what you pay right now is about $5 a month, and that's what you currently pay. And with the options, it's, maybe $15 a month at the max, to about $25 to about $30 a month. So this isn't a huge amount of money we're talking about. If you think about it in terms of bills, like 10 to 15 or $20 a month. But it is going to make a big difference for the long-term care of the landscape industry.
Got a question, man?
Is this a handout, Adam? This is,
Oh, we got a couple more.
Let's get more slides.
yeah, this is so close. Okay, just to talk about the process a little bit, because this is really critical. We talked in November to the people that joined us virtually, which thankfully, we have a lot more people today. But then we have this meeting tonight, February, March 17th is when the council provides us direction to proceed with the Prop 218 process. So, initiating proceedings, that's the next big step. But that next big step doesn't really mean anything to you yet, it just means we're moving forward. We're gonna come back to you in the beginning of April, and we're gonna talk to you again. We're gonna share what our survey results are, and we're gonna talk to you about what we're planning on putting on the May 5th city council agenda, and what we're gonna put in the engineer's report, and what everybody's gonna vote on. And then May 15th, the ballot's gonna be sent out. Melanie talked about that process. Ballots get sent via mail to every property owner at whatever address that they have on their tax records. Then July 21st, we have the council meeting that actually tabulates all the votes that people provide. There's 344 properties. If 10 people only vote, then everything's gonna be based off of those 10 people that voted. So just be aware that your vote is important, more so than in most other cases, because there's only 344 votes. And your vote matters, and it is a vote by property, not by anything else. So there's 4 people that live at your property, you're gonna have to duke it out for who gets that vote. So, so then, yeah, July 21st is the final decision that council is gonna make. And then it goes on the tax records, and that goes out in August. That's just it.
If you wanted to talk to your board, obviously March 17th is our first time, so that we'll be presenting to the city council to initiate the process. We were gonna be coming back with April again, talking about our recommendation based on the feedback that we're hearing from everyone to present. And then on May 5th, we're gonna present that information as well to the board, to the council, for them to make that decision. And so that May 5th is really the large decisionary point for our city council. If the collected group says no, and that's is what we're hearing and we received from the survey, we hear independently from you all that absolutely everyone's gonna vote no, we don't think this is gonna be successful. We'll have that conversation with our council on May 5th. And they'll have to make a decision as of the board, of which way, if they want to continue with the proceedings of the Prop 218 vote anyways, or say, this is the feedback that we received, maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and try to find that resolution to find the answer that works with you. So again, tonight is a listening lessons for us. We are trying to get a consensus of the group. It's a large group. You ever try to get 20 people to agree on one thing, it can be difficult. And so we want to hear everyone and try to go. We gave 3 ideas up there, right? To give you guys a sense of what you can and can't get that comes out of it. The bottom end is the bottom end, though. This is what we feel is necessary to keep it safe, right? Try to reduce your risk, but it doesn't look good, right? If you go back to the picture that goes with it. But I did want to point out to you all, March 17th, you can talk to your city council associated with that. You can fill out a blue card and speak on behalf of that. You can talk to us again in April. We'll be doing another community meeting, just like tonight. You can talk to us specifically. We summarize what we hear and present that information to the council, and you can directly talk to the council on May 5th, as well as July 21st, when we go to council with the actual ballots. That's gonna be the final total that goes with it. Okay, just want to make sure you guys know when you can check in with our city council for this. And then we're available, phone, email, smoke signals, tin cans, wires, it doesn't matter. We do want to hear from you.
Adam gave my spiel, I'm not gonna, there's my information, just reach out to me. Right now, we're just gonna open everything up for questions. And We got our first question here.
This QR code, if you have not seen the website for Del Prado, I highly recommend pulling it up right now, get you to the website. There is a tremendous amount of information, including tonight's presentation on the website, a link to the survey. This is this is where we post all the information that we have for it, including the last 5 years engineers reports. You can look at those historical documents as well if you needed more information. But if hopefully you can get to that. If you do have problems getting to that, please write down the email or phone number to contact us. We'll be glad to help support you to get to that website so you can get that information. As well as you can come into our counter hours. We do it at 200 Old Burnell. We have a front counter. And you can kind of come in and we have folks that can also help get you that information. So again, any way that we can get you this information, we'll be glad to try to share that with you. So with that, we'd like to go ahead and open up to questions and answers.
Okay.
One of them is a liability question. The LMD is responsible if a tree falls on somebody's car or a fire is formed, a fire strikes that area and burns down the houses on the other side of the wall. Is that correct? Is that?
So a lot of those things are like, what we call act of God, right? So the city has a ton of trees that we maintain, and let's say a branch breaks and it falls on a car, people sue the city. And we do go to court and we say this is an act of God, and sometimes it's like the judge says, oh, no, it's not the city's fault, and sometimes he says it is the city's fault. So the difference in why it's our fault or not our fault is, hey, are you actually maintaining those trees? So that's a big part of it. So that's why the landscaping district, if we aren't maintaining trees, why we are much more liable. We want to maintain the trees.
Okay, so if we are liable, does that mean all of us are liable? If
It means the assessment
catastrophic
district,
were to happen
yeah.
and several houses burned down and it was the kids playing in the bushes and it's causing fire, clearly that's already happened.
Yeah, so it would, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to give a answer that's fully. I'll just kind of say it simplistically, like the city is responsible for being the property manager, but it is everybody in the district pays the assessments, so you are potentially liable. I don't know.
That's
Truly.
but. Okay, zone 7 owns the land, correct? From
Correct.
the wall
That's right.
to the freeway.
Yes.
Okay, why were they not involved in the negotiations around maintaining it?
Yeah, so zone 7, anything that's outside of zone 7's purview as far as what they would normally do, which what they normally do is they cut a 2-to-1 slope and they put a gravel maintenance road, and if it's anything besides that, they say this is not our responsibility. So, for instance, all the trails that you see that are open in Pleasanton along the arroyos, those are because of an agreement the city has with zone 7, and then zone 7 says anything that happens, it's the city's responsibility. You want to do any improvements, be it landscape improvements, putting up trash receptacles, doggy bags, whatever that isn't something that would just be part of the routine thing. Like if we want to pave the Arroyo Trail, they say, okay, you could do that, but it's your responsibility. And if we ruin it, it's still your responsibility. And if our slopes fail, it's still your responsibility. So that is the thing that they say, this is our property and we want to be a team player and we're going to let you use it. But anything beyond our normal scope of work is your deal.
Thank you.
You're getting on easy.
Okay.
I have a question, but first I want to thank you for your information. For the first meeting, you got back to me really quickly with answers to that. I really appreciated that. Sorry I couldn't make it. Meeting. I have a question on the water and native plants. Are we gonna try to move to that so that water is like 15% of the bill, especially along the freeway side of the wall?
Yeah.
We go native, so we wouldn't have to run the irrigation out there, and where's the irrigation system working? I know we had a fire on the end of Portland Monterey, is that?
It's not working now.
is that-
So, yeah, so there's 3 irrigation points of connections, 3 meters, 3 backflows. The 2 that irrigate the entire maintenance strip along the Arroyo, those are both shut off, done. We can't do anything with them. They have so many problems with the leaking. We actually gotta go in there and replace a bunch of main line and do a lot of work, and we just don't have the funds to do that right now. Where it is working is we have an irrigation meter on the state of Santa Cruz, right up, like, right just north of Del Prado Park. And that whole landscape strip up against that sound wall there, that does work, and we're actually not having any real big issues with it. And so we are maintaining that landscape, and it is pretty low maintenance stuff. On the Arroyo, it is mostly oak trees. There's a lot of London plane trees. There's a lot of, vegetation that isn't native, like there's a lot of, acacia redolens, which is that kind of really crazy little growth. Anyways, there's a lot of stuff in there that it's all low water use over there. And anything that we would plant moving forward would be low water use, and we would definitely focus on neighbors for sure.
We'll do one more in the room. We also have a question online.
Okay, you've been raising your hand for a while back there.
You mentioned about 10 people voting versus 300 homes.
Yeah.
How does the voting work?
Yeah, so the voting is strictly based off who shows up to vote. So there's 344 possible votes. Let's say a lot of people don't really care, or they just don't vote, and we have 100 people that vote. Out of those 100 people that vote, their vote is based off of the dollar amount that they pay, right? So it's a small range, so it's pretty close. So the lower people might pay $22 a month, and the higher people $25 a month. So the lower people, they get a section of 22, and then the higher people get that section of 25. So they get a little slightly weighted vote based off of the amount that they pay. And once all those votes are tallied and it's over 50% approved, it's approved. And it could be 10 people voting, 50 people, 300 people, doesn't really matter.
Is it the amount that you pay now?
No, it's the
amount that's being
proposed, it's the proposed.
It's your proration.
Yeah. We had one online question, so I'll get to you next.
Go ahead, Ahmad.
Hi, okay, yeah, I guess it's my turn. So I think I raised this point at the in the first meeting, and I don't think I really got a good answer, because the areas that we are focusing on, they are used by just about everybody in Pleasanton, correct? So
Yeah, I mean, it's a publicly accessible area, yes.
right. So I'm a little bit confused as to just why only the residents in this particular area is targeted for this increase, as opposed to just a general increase to Pleasanton, the residents of Pleasanton.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have SCI, who's our engineer, he's gonna answer this question.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Bliss. I'm the civil engineer working in support of the city on this. It's a great question, and it speaks to the concept, the abstract concept that my colleague Melanie talked about, which is general versus special benefit. And we're happy to talk ad nauseum for hours on this issue, but so feel free, do not hesitate to reach out. But let me give you a quick answer, and I think you're gonna like this answer. The folks in the room, the property owners in the room, are certainly not paying the full amount to areas that are used generally or broadly by the city. You're only gonna be assessed, and you can only legally be assessed for the portion of that use that can be assigned to your property, the special benefit to your property. So, and this, don't quote me on this, but just to give you a sense, if there was a trail and there was 100 people using it, and 25 lived in the neighborhood and 75 didn't, you'd be responsible for the 25%. You're not gonna be, you can't, the assessment law doesn't allow you to pay for the benefit of people that are not property owners. So that's part of what Jarvis did in terms of design to protect property owners like you. Does that make sense?
Sounds reasonable, but
Yeah.
in the second part to that point is, so the homes in this neighborhood, the Ponderosa slash Del Prado, yes, when they were initially built and sold, they were a couple $100,000, and so the tax base for those homes were very small in those days. Today, these homes are sold in the multi-billions, and so I am sure that the city is collecting a higher percentage of taxes on the homes in these areas, in this particular area. Why can't some of that funds be reallocated to for this purpose?
I could talk about them.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
You have something?
I don't have anything brilliant to say. I think we're all Californians in the room and I don't, the question is, the cost of our homes went up in California. Shouldn't there have been an associated increase in percentage property tax? That's somewhat true. Now, when these were built, it was before Prop 13, which squeezed down almost a third of what we were collecting at the time. But the cost of everything has gone up. They've gone up. It's an expensive state to work in and to live in. We're lucky to live here. But so as those property values have gone up and governments have generated additional property tax, that's true. But there has been a corresponding increase in costs of labor, costs of material, all of those kind of things. So there wasn't some pot of gold created by that. That's generally how I would answer that.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. I would just also add, if the people that moved here in the 80s or 90s, they're still paying the same taxes that they paid back then with a small increase. So that only becomes a big increase when people sell their home. Now, people are definitely selling their homes, but the fact is that when you pay your taxes, unless you live in an assessment district, that money doesn't just go back to your neighborhood, right? The amount of taxes that the city receives based off of your property taxes or your sales tax, it is a very small percent compared to what the total amount is. So that's just one of the points I would make, is that the benefit of this local type of tax is that your money that you're paying is invested back into your community. That's not true with your property taxes or your sale taxes. Only a small percentage is invested back into your community.
I think a chart that's missing is a comparison to what all the different neighborhoods in Pleasanton actually pay versus what this would cost. Because, I mean, the HOAs alone, if you look at the monthly cost for those versus what you guys are proposing, and just like what you get for that, right? Because, I mean, we have an HOA that's a lot more than this.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and they complain to me, they say, Matt, we're sick of you. We don't want you managing our property. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sick of managing your property. Why don't you get an HOA? And they're like, okay, never mind.
That's the chart that you need though. You need to show like.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Comparison.
Because, yeah, HOA, if you live in an HOA, you're not paying, our maximum $25 to $30 a month. You're paying like $300 a month, or sometimes more, depending on what amenities you have. So it's a really good point to make, and I think that's something that I wish I had thought of before.
But just the final point before I stop here. If we compare an HOA fees are exclusively for the residents in that particular neighborhood, right? I guess that's a key difference between a specific HOA fee and this fee that we have been asked to.
But no, they're exactly the same. The landscape maintenance district is the money you're paying for your assessments only gets used on your neighborhood. So it's the same thing as the HOA. You pay those HOA fees and they only get used on your HOA areas.
Understood, but I think the point I'm making is that everyone in Pleasanton gets to enjoy what we're paying for because they're using the trails and the associated areas, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's it for me. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Okay. What other questions? I know you have a lot of questions. Okay, do you want to give a couple of your questions and then we can mix it up?
I can wait to the end.
Everybody, let's ask a couple of questions just to move it.
So in the June 17th city council meeting agenda, there was a report, I don't know if it.
2025.
Your
2025, yeah.
It said the Arroyo General Benefit Area was at one time part of the district.
Yes.
Why is it no longer part of the district?
So this gets back to kind of what John was saying about the general versus special benefit. It is still part of the district. If you want me to talk about?
Why don't you?
Okay.
And then I can add.
Yeah, so, if you're gonna look back at all the engineers reports, you're gonna see that the city contributes to the dollar amount for the general benefit because of the trail areas.
I believe it was about $9,000.
You got it, about $9,700. And that, we made that change, so the city was paying $9,700 back in 2000 when, it got changed to $16. And so, as we move forward and based off of what we hear, that dollar amount that we have up on the screen about like what it's gonna take for maintenance, maybe the city's gonna be paying for a certain part of that financially, but we are definitely gonna be paying for it by some other ways, which if you review the engineer's report, you might have seen kind of some of the contributions that the city provides that are not monetary, which is more about stormwater repair. John, you did talk about that.
That's exactly right. So the city does make a contribution. And they do it in a number of non-monetary ways, and they control the flood, they provide access to those types of things. This is a common model used up and down the state, and it's been well vetted, and so that's how the city's been doing.
So, yeah, so we're not saying that the city's not gonna pay anything going forward, that's something we're gonna be working out as we put together the engineer's report. So, yeah, just know.
Yeah, the city has to pay.
Yeah.
There's no way that it would be legal without the city's contribution. But like most cities, Pleasanton is saying, hey, we are contributing, and it's a number of non-monetary. In the old school, sometimes there was a shell game of money on different lines. That's not really used anymore. It's now, what is the city contributing in a variety of ways? And then we kind of put a value on that, and that's the fun.
On the two courts that have access to the trail, there's a slice of property there. Who owns that property?
Yeah,
Mentioned garbage.
it's a really, I don't know, can we pull it up on GIS? Do we have? I don't know if we have GIS.
I don't know if it's GIS.
I'm probably gonna have to get back to you on that one. I don't remember if it's the city or zone 7. It's one or the other, almost surely, because it is the access points. It's most likely zone 7, to be honest, but I don't know offhand, so I'm gonna have to get back to you. Let's take one more from you and then we'll move and then come back.
The masonry wall
Yes.
that lines that whole yellow.
Yeah.
Is that sitting on the owner's property or is that wall sitting on zone 7 property?
I have to look back at the records. When we've looked at them before, we saw that they are the homeowner's responsibility, so I think they are on the homeowner's property. Because when you look at the landscape maintenance district, the formation documents, it doesn't talk about in the original verbiage that the sound wall is part of it. So that's true for Paseo, Santa Cruz, and for the Royal adjacent properties.
The
So
walls are on the owner's property.
I think so. But I think I've seen a detail for it that shows where that property line is, but that is something that I'll have to get back to you. But right now, as we're operating, we're not looking at those as being the district's responsibility. It's the homeowner's.
So then one quick follow-up on that is, I thought I read in the original formation of the district that the masonry walls were going to be covered by the district. But all of the material that I'm seeing recently, there's no mention at all of masonry walls.
So in past engineers reports, there are mentions of the masonry wall, but when I go back and I look at the formation document from 1984, I don't think that the masonry wall is in that version. So I think at some point in time, it probably got added mistakenly, but I will go back and double check all this because I think it's an important point. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll stop here. And I have more there.
Okay.
I see there's graffiti removal, so does the city pay for graffiti removal on the outside?
Yeah, so basically, anything that's facing, like, let's say on Paseo Santa Cruz, there's that sound wall. We take care of all that vegetation that's on, like, there's, ivy on there.
Right.
And that's the city's responsibility. If there's graffiti, I mean, when I say the city, I mean, the district's, that's the maintenance district's responsibility. And same with kind of anything that's on our side of the wall as far as we're trying to address graffiti or there's lines that we need to put in or something.
But outside of the Centennial Trail, who owns that wall? There's a lot of graffiti happens on, at least, putting on a raid, down there, there's a fair amount.
Yeah, on the trail itself, that, like in the Ponderosa neighborhood, that is the district's responsibility to maintain that out exterior part. But as he was asking about, I believe the masonry wall, the face of it that's on the creek, the Arroyo side, that face is, I think, lined up with the property line. So it is the property owner's responsibility to replace the wall or do something that they need to do. But it's the city or the district's responsibility. If we want to take care of graffiti that's on the other side, that would be, we do that.
So, am I clear in saying that the homeowner's responsible for the graffiti on the outside of the wall?
No, the district takes care of the graffiti on the outside of the wall. If it happened on their side, they would take care of it.
In regards to the beautification of the trail. So we have trees and plants and things on the trail. In maintenance wise, are we considering adding irrigation and adding more trees or is it just gonna stay with what we have there now?
Adam, could you go back to that one slide that kind of shows the different, the nice looking flower and the poor looking flower?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we're really trying to do is varies depending on the level of maintenance. But we're trying to fix the irrigation and everything so that, let's say a tree fails, that we could replace it at least. With a higher level, we might actually do some additional planting in the areas that are barren. Like, where this fire happened, we would look to kind of refill that in with some really low water use, low maintenance landscaping. This tree that burned down, we'd replace it, It wouldn't be this big aggressive, hey, let's install this brand new irrigation system and this brand new plants, like palette. It would be more of, hey, let's selectively go in there and find out where there's kind of holes in the design or where it's something like, hey, we need some infill planting or we have some problems with some trees. There'd be that sort of thing. With the reduced maintenance, it'd be more of only doing the bare minimum of replacement and like getting the irrigation just to get the main line to some landscapes. So yeah, it wouldn't be this wholesale replacement.
Unless we go back to the formation standards, you're not going to see a substantial increase of any type of plantings that's out there. The city recommended is primarily maintaining what you have out there, large bare areas. We may do some supplemental planting, but it's not going to be nearly as lush as was original, right? And then the reduced maintenance standard is really not much anything, just trying to get the plants up out of there. Maybe some key locations, maybe at key entrance locations, we might do some minor work in those locations. But even if like for the irrigation, it's just like getting the irrigation enough to run some drips or have water available to do like gator bags or different things for early establishments. It's not particularly the reduced maintenance options. It's still barely keeping what we have there. You're going to still see loss that's going out there as plants die out. You're not going to see the type of replacements. With the city recommended, it does give us some funds to slowly start building back that area. The formation standard is let's fill all those holes that are out there, all those plants that have died off. We're going to put the irrigation system back in so that when we do the plantings, they'll survive, and we can ensure all the plantings that are out there will survive during major drought. City recommended we aren't gonna fix 100% of the irrigation systems. We do get large droughts. We are gonna have some die off that goes through there, but there will be some funding for us to address some of that stuff. So I just, for the different levels of service. Again, services declined. Our city recommended is to try to just really maintain what we have, not have any slowly work on key areas to build it back. Where the formation standard is, if you were here when they first planted it and saw how it looked and how beautiful it was, and it was fully maintained, and we had, maintenance crews out there on a regular basis, and, it looked like your front yard that you always like to have, and that's what that formation standard is.
Just a quick question about the voting. Is that gonna be, I assumed it was like gonna be mailed to the houses and you'd vote, but then when I heard you explain it, it almost sounded like it would be an in-person thing. So I'm
No,
just
no.
it is by mail?
It is by mail.
Okay.
What I was trying to say is that if you are somebody that owns a house and you rent it to somebody else, it's gonna be sent to your resident, wherever that is. So wherever you live as a property owner, it's getting mailed to you and you'll be mailing it back. And then we will be in person tabulating the votes at that city council meeting on July 21st.
Just like it's the address on file with the tax assessor's office.
Yeah.
So, you may not live 100%. If you have multiple homes, it's depending on where the tax assessor.
That makes sense.
Address.
I got confused when they're being tallied in person. I think all of a sudden I got thrown there.
So the city's gonna send out the ballots to us then, or is it?
Yeah. So SCI will send out the ballots in conjunction with our city clerk.
So
So
it's
yes.
about $100 per house, right?
It is part of that $36,000 cost, and that is a big part of the expenses is mailing out the
It's
ballots.
$100 for each vote, I mean,
I don't know what the cost is per ballot.
right, but it's pretty expensive. And that's mostly to pay for the consultants and the ballots.
Wait, you're saying what, sorry, what is the
I'm
third?
talking about the cost that you had on the.
Yeah,
on
if you go
those
back to
$6,000.
The Prop 218 process.
Yeah.
So what are they getting for the 36,000?
Yeah, so the 36,000 that you're paying is the Prop 218 process. A big part of that is, the money we're paying SCI for the engineers reports that they're doing, for holding these public outreach meetings, for doing all this research and putting together all these documents. They put together the website. They do all this stuff that you might not see. It's kind of in the background, but they're the experts that we depend on. And so we're paying them. That's a big part of the money. We also have attorney that is working with our city attorney's office that has a small fee that is gonna go through and just check through whatever that final ballot measure is to make sure everything is how it needs to be legally, because they specialize in that Prop 218 process. So the 36,000 pays for consultant fees, the attorney fees, and then all the balloting process and the website of that.
Follow up on that then, how much has already been spent then, out of the 36,000?
I'm not sure, it's maybe 25%, I don't remember, it's 25% in there, I got it.
Up to the point that you send out the ballots, how much will be spent?
By the time the ballots go out, it's
75%. Yeah, but the
Yeah.
cost of the balloting, as you can imagine, it's a mailer, there's a stamp on it. Though we have to design it, there's so many, most of our money is in the engineering analysis, but the cost of the ballot is relatively cheap.
And so to follow up on that, on my question, if we don't approve it and it's turned down, then that $37,000 will come out of our existing budget and we'll have less money to make community plans.
correct.
So, we started paying this money, I don't know, back in what year, 84?
So 1984 is when the district was formed, but I think that usually the developer forms it and then they take time to construct everything, so probably, I don't know, is anybody original property owner here? When did you buy your house, 87?
84.
84, okay, so yeah,
Okay, so the 3%, we said that there would be a 3% annual increase on one of your footnotes.
so it would be,
And so if we were paying, if the increasing 3% every year, over these years, we wouldn't be here. talking about. So,
Like, so if we go back in time and if it had increased by that percent, we wouldn't be here talking today. But if we move forward, Adam made this point, but I'll just kind of reemphasize it, is that, look, if we vote yes, and I hope everybody votes as a comes to consensus and we vote yes on something, it's capped at 3%. So if inflation is 2% that year, it'll be 2%. If it's 2.7, it'll be 2.7. If it's 3.8, it'll only be 3. And then the point Adam was making is like, hey, we actually do all the things that are on our list. And we have enough reserves to pay for, some emergencies. And then at that point in time, your next, we'll put in the engineer's report, hey, this is what we're predicting the expenses are gonna be, and we don't need to put money into the reserve, then your fee, your money you're gonna pay is actually gonna go down. Yeah.
okay, so trying to get to my actual question about, going from $5 a month to $20 a month is a jump. It's a
Yeah.
huge jump.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we could increase it like 1% a year until we get to a certain amount? Or,
That's something, there's something we talked about, like a tiered approach, where it's like,
so it's not so
we
sad
increase it.
for retired people that are on our fixed income, for example.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we talked about is like, okay, what if we change it from like this year it's $5, you're paying $5, you'd say you're paying $5 a year. Next year, it's gonna be $10 a month. The year after that, it's, or whatever, it's $8 a month. We could step that, and that tiered approach is definitely a possibility, and it's gonna be built into whatever that ballot measure is. And that's something we would need to figure out now. So that's something, if it's like, hey, everybody here says, you know what, we think it's a good idea, let's go with the city approach, but we wanna phase it in over time, over a 10-year period or whatever. It just means we could do that, but you're not gonna see the improvements happen nearly as quickly.
So we would not catch up, in other words.
It would take
We
you
would
longer.
still fall
Yeah,
behind
yes.
if we did it that way.
I mean, you would be making implemental steps forward instead of a big step forward. But eventually you would still get there. It would just be, we would cap it at like, hey, we're gonna do this over 5 years or whatever. Yeah.
That's your point.
With inflation, would you still be able to include the inflation though?
Yeah, whatever we're gonna do is we are gonna have that inflation.
Now isn't gonna be for 30,000 in 10 years.
Yeah, so let's say our approach was, hey, we wanna meet this, $30 a month fee. And we wanna do it, we'll do it in 5 years. So we pay $5 now, and you did $5 a month now. And you just added $5 a month every single year until we hit that 30 plus we build in that inflation to that 5 plus, the $10, and then add inflation to 15, and then inflation to 20, and 25, and so on. So is that something everybody thinks that, like, the challenge is, like Adam was saying, to get everybody to agree on, even if we have, 24 people in this room, and we have 344 people, so we wanna put our best foot forward for the entire neighborhood. And I don't know what the answer is, and that's what we're depending on, hearing from you as the representatives that actually care enough to come to a meeting like this.
$242 all of a sudden, as opposed to $60 a year, makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want the risk involved with the reduced maintenance.
Yeah.
Because I think that there can be more risk there that we may not want to be part of.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge.
And yet, I wanna say, when I walk those trails all the time, I've never had any negative. I've never looked at the wild oak trees and ever, thought that it looked bad out there, or walking by the park. So I don't know if it has to quite be so beautiful park-like, where there's all green plantings that are getting all, because it's so wild and nature, and there's a lot of, native trees back there that haven't been getting water for probably 5 years.
Yeah, a
But
long time.
they look great.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, I totally hear you, and we're not proposing, and we don't think we would even wanna do that, is restoring it back. And we wouldn't try to do that unless we actually did that formation standard, or probably that new planting would be more focused on Paseo Santa Cruz. And then all that vegetation over, off the trail, that would just be like, hey, we would just mostly fill in holes and fix the irrigation. And what we really, I mean, a lot of what we wanna do is make sure we have the ability to take care of potential issues, right? So get the irrigation system back up and running, whatever that means, whether it's like, hey, let's make sure we have enough irrigation. So like Adam was saying, we could have our contractor put water bags on the new trees that we plant. So let's say a big storm comes in, blows over, 10 trees in that area. We gotta have the money to take care of that, and we wanna be able to not only take care of it, but have a plan moving forward so that we have more trees for the future generations. Yeah, so it's not a big improvement. It's like, we want to prune those trees, take care of them, make sure they stay healthy. When it's a big time of drought, be able to give them a little bit of supplemental water so that they can make it through.
it's not gonna look like the park on.
It's never gonna look like Del Prado.
Del Prado Park.
No, it's never gonna look like Del Prado.
Never did look like.
No, we're not putting turf out there, I can tell you that, yeah.
I wonder along the Arroyo, we've got a lot of dead trees that have rolled into the Arroyo when we had the fire and the flooding Monterey. You're not concerned with the homeowners on the court that it could have, because it flew off pretty fast, it's very dry back there.
Yes.
Is that the city's responsibility or the district, what do we say?
So that-
LMD or
Yes.
Zone 7?
So that whole area back there, I mean, between the wall and the trail, that is the district's responsibility. All those dead trees back there. So I know a lot of people don't really see them because they see a lot of green mixing with the brown. But there is a lot of dead stuff back there. It's pretty incredible. And there's a huge buildup of dead stuff. I mean, there's like dead stuff galore. And when that fire happened, I think I lost a year of my life. I was like, oh no. And then I was like, found out, okay, it actually went, it wasn't so bad.
Really impressive turnout from all the fire departments.
Yeah,
There was some
thank
impressive
goodness.
cavalry running down the street with like 15 guys and with their shovels and it was pretty scary.
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, like a little thing like that could lead to so much disaster, and we really don't want to be in that position again. I mean, for me, that's like avoiding that and preparing us as a city and as a district from being in this situation where a fire could spread like that because there's so much dry kindling. We really want to get after that.
And that's the difference from what you're paying right now at that 20,000 to the 52,000 is our ability to annually try to go in there and start reducing those buildup of that. So, what's gonna change? It may not look like a big change to you, but if you ask our fire department, when we clear out all that dead underbrush and those dead limbs from those trees, that reduction is a huge reduction in fire risk. You start going to the city recommended, where now we're putting more water to that, they're really gonna love the reduction in risk that goes along with it. So your risk reduction dramatically increases the more maintenance that we do with this. So not only is it, making it a better appearance, more appearance helps with your property values, it also reduces the potential risk of fire. The more maintenance you do, the higher standard you do, also leads to less vandalisms. It is proven that the better you care for an area, the better care that the community outside of your community will give to that area. And so if it looks neglected, it gets treated neglected. And so it's we try to do the best that we can with the money that we do have. But again, we're back to a point where we haven't done that removal of stuff. We had a fire out there. We got really lucky. We had a good response, but it really is a large wake up call that we need to do something. And that's why we're spending the money to do this process.
You said that fire was started by kids?
I don't know if it was started by kids, but I know that I got called out there by a homeowner complaining about kids, like smoking weed and drinking beer back there. And I went back there and I found the kids back there and they were in their treehouse that they had built. And there was definitely stuff back there that, you know, was something you might do as a young, you know, 13-year-old. And I talked to them about that. And I was like, you guys need to clear this out. And, you know, they're kids and they didn't listen.
So it's kind of concerned that it wasn't
Can you
natural.
show me on the map where that fire
It didn't
was?
happen.
Yeah. I've asked our fire department about it and they think it was started by like a cigarette lighter. So the fire happened right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw two kids on bikes, that's 12-year-old racing down the court, taking away.
I bet, it's like, yeah, I bet it was the same kids.
Outside the wall or inside, between the gate and the trail?
Outside, it's between the gate and the trail. Yeah, I mean, it was like on the royal side, so it was luckily it's like in a really great spot because it has a good access points and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't halfway between the gates and the fire trucks had to come all the way. Yeah.
Another thing I was wondering is, like the buildup of the wood and stuff, is there, can we do kind of a community, cleanup, or get it out, and instead of you guys having to pinch pennies and stuff to get it hired out?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a community event, that's definitely something we could talk about and have like a, you know, community cleanup day and like, you know, the city would assist by, you know, helping collect and make sure we're not removing things or, you know, people sometimes get crazy with ideas and I would be there to make sure that craziness doesn't go to. Yeah.
Good intentions cost money.
Set that up, or how would you?
So, you know, one of the things so we just had another meeting last night with the other district that is in a similar situation as you. And what we talked to them about is there's a thing called Firewise community and it does need to be started by the neighborhoods and it does actually, they're actually in a fire hazard severity zone. So they have a different situation than you, but, anyways, my point is that they were asking me what I could do to help, and I would tell you the same thing is like, look, if you're interested in that, what I could do is I could collect everybody's email addresses, and then I could send out an email to everybody, you know, asking if it's okay that I email them about this, and if they're interested, please respond to me, and then I could help put together that event. But it's gonna be kind of it needs to have somebody in the community that is spearheading it rather than me, because I don't. Yeah, exactly. All right, Carl, I know, I've been holding back on me, what do you got?
So, was our district, our area built first? Before the rest of the homes?
I think so, I gotta double check that, and I think you guys came first and everybody else came. Well, wait, you would know.
Hey, don't yet.
Excuse me.
You're the original owner, right? So, was our district built first and then all the other homes between us and Valley built next?
When we moved into our house on the sale, Corte del Oro, the houses between Corte del Oro and the rest of the street were not built yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All our neighbors across the street, they weren't even there. Wow. Did you see the snow on the mountain this morning? Oh, beautiful.
Wow.
And I left too early this morning. Darn it, I got front row, man.
So if there's a lot of vegetation along the Sierra Santa Cruz. There's a masonry wall that lines
Are you talking about
Valley Avenue. No, I'm going outside of our district now.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, on Valley Avenue.
And then along Valley Avenue, there's masonry walls and vegetation. You're standing at the LDS church and looking across the Santa Cruz. There's a whole strip of trees that are sitting between the sidewalk and the curb. Who takes care of all of that vegetation? How's all that paid for?
Yeah, so it's really, it really is mixed depending on the developer and the agreement between the city council and like how that PUD came about. Sometimes the property owners pay, like you're a property owner, you pay for everything up into the curb and if there's a tree there, you maintain that tree. Sometimes the city actually maintains the trees, but the property owners maintain everything at the ground level. If it's a median, sometimes it's a city that maintains it, sometimes it's the HOA. It's definitely never
It-
like a personal property.
It is a
It is a
specific by specific location, unfortunately, in the city
Since
of
I'm talking
Pleasanton.
about a specific area, I don't believe there's any other.
Are you talking about on the Paseo Santa Cruz? You're talking about on the Paseo Santa Cruz?
Yes, just our Ponderosa area.
But it's outside of our district,
Right,
yeah.
it's closer to the
Like,
valley.
it's,
So-
sorry, it's on. West-
So we can answer some of those questions afterwards, if there is no other questions about our district, and we'll pull up Google Earth and maybe we can help you.
Well, I'll ask you later then, because it's all discussion about who really should be paying 40 years later after we had this discussion. Are we
Yeah.
really in the right
Thank you
model?
very much, thank you for coming.
Are we in the right model for the next 40 years? Because 40 years ago, a lot of this stuff
Thank you.
was built out, right? So now it is, and the city's paying for maintenance all over the place, and there's all different kinds of models, and I'm just,
Yeah, I mean,
I can ask more.
I could talk to you about that to the end of the
Yes.
world as, and Adam could
It's
probably.
good, wait, yeah, I mean, you're right, it's an imperfect system.
Yeah,
And
so I'm seeing different color coded parcels.
Yeah.
Is those the places that are getting specific benefit?
Special benefit.
Special benefit?
Slightly
Increase,
different, yeah,
increase
yeah.
special benefit.
There are two lots that are south
These ones are the.
of Corte de Flores up there. On the west side of the state of Santa Cruz, it's marked in yellow. Why are those two lots getting special benefits? I don't see a sound wall there. I
Yeah,
don't
so if
see
you,
any
if you
special
look, if you
vegetation.
look at the little yellow area,
Yeah,
that's the landscape maintenance district's responsibility. So oddly enough, this little strip of land between the curb and the sidewalk.
on the east side,
On the west side.
On the west side.
on the west side.
That is the landscape maintenance district's responsibility.
Yeah,
So
that's-
if there's something, if there's plants there and they die, we replace them. Yeah.
It's pretty wide compared to
Yeah,
the
they're,
sidewalk.
yeah, they're not like a little strip, it's, you know,
Yeah.
it's a bigger.
Okay.
But they're the two oddball portions of Paseo Santa Cruz within your development area. Every other portion of Paseo Santa Cruz, there either is not that parkway strip or the homes face the road, and so the property owner is responsible for it. So these are like the only kind of, hey, it's like no man's land to a certain extent. And so that was, the solution was to put them into this.
So the only things that this whole price increase is dealing with is stuff that's left, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The rest of it's dealt with by the city.
The
There
other colors-
various different.
Yeah,
Private property.
all right. What else you
Everything
got?
else, I can talk later.
Okay.
Great.
Thank
I
you.
think
I mean, you're the only people here, so if you want my time.
There's time right now.
All right.